We've made it to our final day of training, and here is the overview of the big picture and major work for the fourth 9 weeks. The big idea focus for this 9 weeks is the human struggle for identity. Defining questions include: how does society influence our self-perception? What are the rewards or consequences for differing from the societal norms? What is the value of the individual? Are there ways that the individual can express his or her ideas without ridicule? And the skills focus is author's voice and method, including satire. And you will see a very heavy focus on satire for the duration of this 9 weeks. The full-length text for this 9 weeks is The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. This is a fantastic novel for anchoring the module's focus on satire, but it is a work that must be approached with sensitivity and caution, owing to its frequent use of the N-word and its depiction of racist attitudes of the pre-Civil War South. Teachers' professionalism and sensitivity are imperative for the setup of this novel. You'll begin by introducing satire. Then you'll move to introducing Mark Twain and the purpose of his using the realistic language and dialects of the time period to create the satirical effect in his novel. You might ask students to think about, why is it so important for us to know that at one time, not so very long ago, people spoke these words in so casual a manner? There's opportunity for meaningful discussion here, but be sure to monitor closely and moderate as needed. Please note that if the language of the original version is challenged in your school district, there is a revised version of this book, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, the New South edition by Dr. Alan Gribben, and that can be used as a slightly less inflammatory substitute. Although I think it's best to use the original if at all possible, as the realism adds to the depth of the message. You might also do well to anticipate the students' struggle with dialect as they read the novel independently. Many of them have not seen these dialects before, and if they're not able to kind of play that text in their head as they read, they're going to need some help. So you can assist them by choosing segments to read aloud yourself, or maybe you have a coworker who's a really strong reader that you might ask to come in and read some segments. Or you could just recommend some good audio versions that can assist students with their independent reading. As your students read the book, you want to make sure to point out some examples of Twain's humor, as well as the satirical situations, and also encourage students to think about the ways in which Huck rebels against all his society has taught him in order to honor his own sense of what is right. This is the tie-in to that big question, and it's also an area of tremendous relevance to your teenagers. All right, let's look at how this novel falls in the big picture for the 9 weeks. Week 1 is designated for the introduction of satire. The students are also assigned the first 11 chapters to read independently. Week 2 brings introduction of the satire project, in which student groups will work together to create their own satirical products. Week 3 is dedicated almost entirely to novel study. So we have discussion of the first 11 chapters on day 1, and then we assign new chapters for the following week. There's more novel discussion on day 2, and a little time to work on the satire project there as well. On days 3 and 4, there is an analysis of satire journal activity, and in this activity, student groups are given specific chapters to work with to create journal entries that they'll share with the class. And then finally, there's this one man against the crowd activity. And this examines several passages from the novel to analyze Twain's depiction of mob mentality. So this is a good exercise to work through together as a class. Week 4, there's more novel discussion, more new chapters are assigned, and there's also a Socratic seminar set up here. And in your module, you'll find plenty of resources to use to assist with the Socratic seminar. Great discussions are almost guaranteed here because this book is so difficult to read and to teach, but it's also so relevant. Weeks 5 and 6 allow for more discussion, and by week 6, students will have finished the novel. And so on day 3, you will give some kind of summative assessment, and what that looks like is up to you. So you can assess according to your own preferences. And as with every major work, you can also choose to add as many formative assessments as you wish to help students keep up with and process their independent reading. All right, let's take a quick look at the Marzano Element. As you're receiving all of this content digitally, these elements are a little bit harder to see for this 9 weeks, but I think you'll get a good idea of how these show up in your teaching. Element number 25 is using physical movement. And that involves the teacher engaging students in physical activity to keep them engaged. This is backed by research that shows that physical activity is associated with higher energy, and that higher energy in turn helps students pay more attention to what's happening in class. Some of those students just need physical movement in order to help their brains work and help them learn. We can see physical movement in several of the activities. For example, in examining concise satirical arguments, there's a gallery walk at the end that allows students to get up and move around. In some of these other activities, you can provide opportunities for some movement, such as in the one man against the crowd. And of course, students can move around to work together as they create their satire projects as well. The next Marzano element, number 26, is maintaining a lively pace. Now, that does not necessarily mean moving through the curriculum at a quick pace, although it certainly seems like we do. But it has more to do with using pacing techniques to keep your students' attention and keep them engaged. That means that sometimes we have to speed up if we're covering something that maybe they already know, or that it's something that it's hard for them to stay engaged with. And then we also have to understand that sometimes we need to slow down. If we're introducing something much more difficult, we might need to slow down a little bit to give them more time to absorb it. It also means that we need to really limit the time that we waste in class. And as teachers, you guys know, there are interruptions, there are changes in schedule, there are times when students are kind of dragging and they don't want to transition from one activity to the next quickly. So setting up policies for quick transitions, setting up policies to limit interruptions can really help keep your instruction going, and that keeps your students' attention. All right, that's it for our fourth 9 weeks, big picture and major work overview. This is a difficult 9 weeks, but it's a very relevant 9 weeks, and it's a skill that students really struggle with at first and really seem to enjoy as they progress through. And they certainly have a good time creating and presenting those satire projects. So I hope you have a lot of fun with that.